Some people find it quite hard to nail down what their financial goals actually are. People often come to us with objectives like to be able to retire comfortably, or to be financially independent so I can work because I enjoy it, not because I have to. But most haven't put numbers or timeframes on these goals. A really important part of what we do is to help people define these goals in a smart way, so they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Then we help clients invest their assets to maximise the chance those goals can be achieved. In this video, I'll run through an example of how we do this for a fairly typical person who is at the stage of wanting to get serious about their finances. What I'm showing you here is the tool we use at Profile called Pathways. This helps to define your goals, as well as build an investment strategy that has a high chance of helping you achieve them. So let's get started. As you can see, our example client Brad is 45 years old and has the goal of being financially independent at age 60, in 15 years' time. As a male, he will have an average life expectancy of about 23 years at retirement, which would take him to age 83. However, there is a 50% chance that Brad will live longer than this, because that's just the average life expectancy. So to be safe, we will aim for a bit longer and plan to age 92 for Brad. This reduces the risk that he might outlive his plan from 50% to less than 16%. Brad is aiming to retire on an income of $100,000 a year from age 60. That will actually need to be over $150,000 a year by the time he retires because of inflation. He'll invest most of his retirement assets in superannuation, which is concessionally taxed. At the end, Brad would like to have $200,000 in today's dollars left over as a bit of a buffer. The next step is to calculate how much capital Brad will need to have invested at retirement in order to meet his goals. In this case, Brad would need to have just under $2.6 million invested at retirement. That's the equivalent of about $1.7 million in today's dollars. Of course, there are a lot of important assumptions behind these calculations, and small changes in these can make a big difference to the results. Just give us a call if you'd like to find out more. Okay, now the next step is to find out how Brad is progressing towards this goal. If he keeps doing what he's doing now, will he have enough to retire on? Now, Brad has $200,000 in superannuation and is only contributing to super via his employer's super guarantee payments. Outside super, Brad has savings of $20,000. He's got these earmarked to go towards his retirement. At the moment, he's not putting any extra into that investment. So in total, over the next 15 years, he will be contributing just under $144,000 to achieving his retirement goals, assuming his income goes up with inflation. So, will Brad achieve his goal? Well, in short, no. Based on what Brad is currently doing, he would need to earn an average investment return of almost 20% a year to have $2.6 million accumulated by retirement. In the real world, this is very unlikely to happen. It's actually very common to see a situation like this the first time we run through a client's goals with them. A very high proportion of Australians probably won't have anywhere near enough invested to achieve the lifestyle they would like to enjoy in retirement. But if you're watching this video, take heart. You are clearly someone who is interested in planning ahead, and that is the key. Time can be your greatest friend in investing, and the earlier you develop and implement your plan, the better off you'll be. This is because compound interest can do more of the heavy lifting for you, the longer it has to work. Back to our example client. Clearly, Brad is going to need to make some changes. Let's see first if a few changes to his goals could make them more achievable. As I said, time is a big factor. Unfortunately, we can't turn back the clock, so maybe Brad could retire 5 years later instead, at age 65. Another thing that can have a big impact is the amount you withdraw from your investments each year. Maybe Brad could get by on $80,000 a year instead of $100,000 per year in retirement. Making these changes to his goals would reduce the amount Brad needs to have invested at retirement by about $300,000, so it should make that target easier to hit. Let's see if this is now achievable for Brad. As you can see, the required rate of return has reduced to just under 13% per year. This is a bit more likely than the 20%, but still much higher than we would be comfortable to project someone's financial future on. Our experience suggests that any return above 9% over extended periods has a pretty low chance of actually happening. Even though some years will be higher, some will be lower too. So, Brad will need to make a few more changes before his plan starts looking feasible. Brad doesn't want to alter his goals any further, so our next port of call will be to look at increasing the amounts he's investing for his retirement. Brad's currently paying off a home loan at $3,000 a month, and that loan should be paid off within 5 years. Suppose Brad uses this money to start adding more to his super in 5 years' time, after his home loan's paid off. This will increase his total contributions over the next 15 years to more than $920,000. That's better. You can see that this change reduces the required rate of return to 7.8%, a much more realistic target. Now we have a target return we can work with, and as planners, we can go away and come up with an investment strategy that we think has a high chance of achieving this for Brad. In this example, Brad would need to allocate about 60% of his funds to a strategy we call preservation, which aims to deliver a reasonable return above inflation over periods of 3 years and longer. The other 40% would be allocated to a more aggressive strategy we call accumulation, which aims to deliver strong returns above inflation over periods of 6 years and longer. I'd really encourage you to view my video on this site called Objectives-Based Investing, which explains these strategies in more detail. Now, back to Brad. The big question is, will Brad actually start making those contributions in 5 years' time? We all know how our best intentions can change, and our expenses have a nasty tendency to creep up over time. What if Brad decided to upgrade his home instead of increasing his super, and so he delayed making those extra contributions by another 5 years? You can see that instead of starting in 5 years in 2018, he is starting 5 years later from 2023. This reduces the total contributions Brad's making to his retirement to just under $700,000. And sure enough, the required rate of return has gone back up to 10% in this case. This would put Brad back into unachievable plan territory. This really illustrates how dangerous delaying your plans can be. So hopefully you can see from this how we can help to develop an achievable plan with goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time-bound. In other words, SMART. And once you have a feasible plan, we can help you put together an investment strategy you're comfortable with that will help you get to where you want to go. Of course, you can't just set and forget. So once your plan is set, reviewing it regularly is vital as your circumstances, investment markets and legislative change can all have a big impact on your strategies. For every person, the path to financial independence will be different, and that's why it's important to get tailored financial advice that's specific to you. Thanks for your time.